Developing right now on Morning News Now, chaos and celebration in the streets of Syria as more than 50 years of dictatorship by one family comes to an end. This morning, Syria's ousted President Bashar al-Assad living in exile after fleeing to Russia, and prisoners of the Assad regime now free from captivity after a two-week advance by rebel fighters.
The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty.
Now, cautious optimism as questions mount about what happens next. We have team coverage. Also developing new clues in the search for a killer. New York police releasing more photos of a person of interest in the shooting death of health insurance executive Brian Thompson. Investigators recovering a backpack full of monopoly money believed to belong to the shooter. Bring you the latest. Plus, an NBC News exclusive, serious allegations against rap mogul Jay-Z, a musician whose real name is Sean Carter, fighting back against accusations he raped a 13-year-old girl, along with Sean Diddy Combs. More on the lawsuit and the rapper's scathing response. And removing the red, the Food and Drug Administration planning to ban artificial food dye, a common ingredient in food and drinks. More on the move and what it could mean for you. One of many changes we may see coming soon to the FDA.
Yes, definitely. Good to have you with us on a Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your week with us. We're going to begin our show with the dawn of a new chapter in Syria. This morning, people there are waking up to their first day without President Bashar al-Assad. The Syrian leader ruled the country for 24 years before fleeing to Russia over the weekend in the wake of a rapid two-week advance by rebel forces.
Many Syrians are celebrating the collapse of the government and the end of a near 14-year civil war that killed almost 500,000 people. International organizations accuse the Syrian government of committing human rights abuses, including torture and kidnapping. But Syria's future remains uncertain. The rebel insurgents that spearheaded the offensive are part of an Islamic group known as HTS. They're considered a terror group by the United States and the United Nations. Speaking yesterday, President Biden welcomed the downfall of the Syrian government and said his administration would begin work on a transition for the country.
We will engage with all Syrian groups, including within the process led by the United Nations, to establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward independent, sovereign, independent, I want to say it again, sovereign Syria, with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves.
We've got a team standing by to cover all of this. We are going to start with NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez. Raf, good morning. All this happened so fast. Just walk us through the events of the last 24 hours and the reaction we're already getting out of Syria this morning.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. So fast. The history of the Middle East rewritten at lightning speed. Bashar al-Assad and his family ruled Syria with an iron fist for more than 50 years, but their regime crumbled in less than 2 weeks in the face of this advance by Syrian rebel fighters. They burst out of northwest Syria, taking city after city. And in the early hours of Sunday morning, they entered the capital, Damascus, seizing control there. Bashar al-Assad, Syria's toppled president, fleeing to Russia along with his family. His regime really didn't put up a fight at any stage during this rebel advance. And what we've come to see is that this was a truly brittle regime that without the help of its main backers, Russia, who over the last 2 years has been distracted in Ukraine, Iran and Hezbollah, who've been weakened fighting against Israel over the last year, Assad's forces really were in no position to fight themselves. They threw down their weapons, and today the rebels are consolidating power in Damascus. As you mentioned, the rebels are led by an Islamist group. It has its origins in al-Qaeda. It is considered still to be a terrorist organization by the United States, but it is going to great lengths to try to signal to the Syrian people and to the world that it's moderated. Its leader, Mohammed al-Jolani, was in one of the historic mosques in the old city of Damascus yesterday. He's promising a government for all Syrians, that there will not be reprisals against political enemies, against minority groups, and people around the region, around the world, are watching to see as this new rebel government takes shape. Guys.
Yeah, Raf, let's talk about what could come next. I mean, there's concern, there's uncertainty, especially since the main rebel group here, they are considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. Tell us more about the president's reaction to these events and what we will see next.
So President Biden speaking at the White House yesterday saying that this is both a moment of opportunity and a moment of risk. And at the center of that balance are these rebels, the main group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And the U.S. says that they will judge them by their actions. Take a listen.
We will remain vigilant. Make no mistake, some of the rebel groups that took down Assad have their own grim record of terrorism and human rights abuses. We've taken note of statements by the leaders of these rebel groups in recent days, and they're saying the right things now. But as they take on greater responsibility, we will assess not just their words, but their actions.
Now, senior administration officials were asked yesterday whether the United States would think about removing that terror designation from HTS. They said that that is not a step that they are going to take at this time, but that they are finding ways to engage with them. It's worth saying HTS is the largest rebel group, but there are a number of other factions, some of them backed by the U.S., by American allies like Jordan, who are also playing a role in Damascus. And one of the big questions here is how these different rebel groups will work together going forward. Guys.
Raf, on top of all that, many Syrians are celebrating the downfall of the Syrian government, but Israel says it's been carrying out airstrikes there. It's even launched a ground operation. Tell us what Israel's goals are here.
Yeah, so guys, I just want to give you a little sense of the geography here. If control room can come back to me, I'll explain exactly where we're standing. We're on the Israeli-controlled side of the Golan Heights. We're looking out over southern Syria. Damascus is over the horizon. And this used to be a buffer zone with Israeli forces on one side, Syrian troops on the other. But as the Syrian regime has collapsed, Israel has moved its forces inside of Syria itself. Now, the Israeli government is saying this is a temporary measure. It is designed to prevent instability, to make sure that the conflict in Syria doesn't spill over into Israeli-controlled territory on this side of the border. Israel also, as you said, carrying out airstrikes targeting chemical weapons, biological weapons, ballistic missile facilities inside of Syria. And what the Israeli government is saying is that it is absolutely determined that these strategic weapons do not fall into the wrong hands, especially into the hands of terrorist groups operating within that broader rebel coalition.
Yeah,
Yes.
We also understand the U.S. carried out airstrikes on ISIS targets, speaking of in Syria, in the wake of this takeover. How concerned is the Biden administration that the group could take advantage of a power vacuum?
Yeah, it's a major concern, and that is exactly the term, a power vacuum. You have a lot of chaos inside of Syria right now. ISIS thrives in chaos. It thrives in areas where there are not governmental authorities. The U.S. says that one step it is taking is it's going to keep those roughly 1,000 ground troops inside of Syria. They are in a largely Kurdish-controlled area in the eastern half of the country. There's no indication that these rebels are any threat to those American forces. But as you saw, even with these whirlwind political changes going on in the capital, those American counterterrorism operations continuing in the east of the country. Guys.
Right. Raf, thank you very much for your reporting. Let's continue this conversation with Hagar Shamali. She's the host of Oh My World on YouTube and the former NSC director for Syria and Lebanon. Hagar, always good to have you with us. So first off, just put into context the significance of what we're seeing unfold in Syria right now, not just for Syria itself, but for the region as a whole.
Sure. It's absolutely astonishing. There isn't any foreign policy expert or any billions of dollars of intelligence that could have predicted what we saw in Syria over the last week and certainly over this weekend. And I want to put it in the 60,000-foot level because it reflects these larger geopolitical dynamics. This wouldn't have happened without the weakness that you're seeing among Bashar al-Assad's club of baddies, Iran, Hezbollah, Russia. Iran's on the defense. Hezbollah's been decapitated. And Russia, importantly, is obviously distracted by Ukraine. But Russia is critically the one that saved Bashar al-Assad in 2014 during the civil war and shifted the tides in favor of him. And without Russia, he wasn't able to do it. And so the way he fled like a coward is nothing we could have predicted. And most importantly, it was the military defecting. A dictator cannot stand without his military. And so to watch them defect and leave their post this way, that's critically also why he had to run away before they captured him.
Hagar, with all that being said, just how surprised were you by how quickly the Syrian government collapsed here? And help us understand why Russia this time around did not come to Assad's defense.
Yeah, I was definitely incredibly surprised because a week ago when the rebels had taken Aleppo, my expectation was that Assad would respond with the same force that he responded throughout the civil war, with indiscriminate bombing of civilians done in partnership with Russia and Iran. Even though Russia and Iran are much weaker, that doesn't mean that they don't actually have some resources to lend. But if they're all on the defense and Russia's distracted, then they're not going to want to invest in Assad. And I think that's a key part. Right after that happened, Assad flew to Moscow to kiss Putin's ring and beg him for support. And Putin didn't give it to him. And again, Putin is very focused on Ukraine. He himself is struggling and spending his resources, which is why he's relying on others like North Korea. But that said, there's also this belief there clearly that this was not a dictator they felt the need to invest in anymore. This uprising and the fact that the rebels did this is because Assad himself did nothing to appease his people, to support them with their protests. And so I think they also lost faith in him as well.
While many are celebrating the fall of Assad, the fall of this dictatorship, there are, of course, worries about what does come next. This main rebel group that spearheaded this takeover, designated terrorist by the U.S. What do you think comes next, and how will the Biden administration proceed, given we're just a month away from the incoming Trump administration?
Sure. Well, I've never seen, to be honest with you, I've never seen in my experience an Islamist militia that was once designated as a terrorist group change its ways so radically that they actually become the beacon of democracy. And the reason, and the proof is in the pudding. This is a group that controlled northwestern Syria as it is, and they controlled it with a conservative, if not often extreme Sunni ideology. They did crack down on dissent. They did crack down on minorities there. And so there isn't a lot of hope for me. And the problem that you see in Syria as well in general, when you have a vacuum like this, you're going to have a lot of rebels take advantage. The Biden administration, the best they can do is ensure the protection of Kurds and that ISIS doesn't reemerge. And most importantly, the release of American journalist Austin Tice, who remains in Syria and is well and alive.
Hagar Shamali, thank you for joining us.
This morning, the murder mystery that has captivated the nation is deepening.
Yeah, police released new photos of a man they are calling a person of interest in the deadly shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Investigators say the pictures are from the taxi that person took to a bus terminal after the murder. Police also said they found a backpack they believe belongs to the suspect, but here's a strange detail. It held a jacket and Monopoly money.
For more, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro. She is in Midtown Manhattan. Valerie, good morning. So we have these new photos, this possible backpack belonging to the person of interest. Any signs police are any closer to finding the suspect?
Joe and Savannah, good morning. We know the clues continue to slowly trickle in this case. Of course, as you mentioned, NYPD releasing those new images of a person of interest over the weekend, that man wearing a mask seen in the back of a taxi cab and walking alongside that car. But police sources say investigators have not made a positive identification of the suspect or person of interest that they are looking for in this case. They do continue to search for the weapon that was used in the shooting, the NYPD deploying dive teams to a lake inside Central Park over the weekend. We know the suspect was seen on surveillance video riding a bicycle into and out of Central Park following the shooting, so dive teams were searching for that weapon somewhere in the park. The NYPD also sending out canines that specialize in gun detection to Upper Manhattan, where the suspect is believed to have last been near the bus terminal near the George Washington Bridge, thinking that the gunman may have stashed the weapon in that area before likely leaving the city. Joe and Savannah.
Valerie, investigators, though, are expanding their search right out of New York, out of the whole tri-state area, even including nearly 1,000 miles away to Georgia. Tell us more about the locations that are being searched and who's involved.
Yes, Savannah, last week the NYPD put out a very detailed timeline. They say the suspect is believed to have arrived in New York City by Greyhound bus at the Port Authority bus terminal in late November. And that bus, they say, originated from the Atlanta area. Now, later in the day of the shooting, they say the suspect was seen leaving Central Park on a bicycle, getting into a taxi cab and heading to another bus terminal in Upper Manhattan, where they believe he may have also boarded a bus leaving the New York City area. They are checking to see if there is surveillance or photos of that suspect boarding another bus, potentially headed towards the Atlanta area. We know Atlanta police are now also involved in this investigation.
And Valerie, this shooting is sparking backlash against the American healthcare system and some rather unexpected reactions. Over the weekend, there was even a shooter look-alike competition in New York. How is United Healthcare just responding to this attack right now?
Yeah, Joe, you mentioned that look-alike competition. It's become sort of a lighthearted thing here in the city over the last several months. There was a Timothée Chalamet look-alike contest a few months ago in Washington Square Park. The actor himself showed up. But that event took sort of a dark turn over the weekend when someone organized a look-alike competition for people to arrive dressed as the gunman. People showed up wearing hooded jackets, masks over their faces. Unclear if anyone was declared a winner. United Healthcare has not issued any new statements other than the one that was issued following the shooting, calling Thompson a highly respected colleague and friend. We have learned that today a funeral service will be held. We're told that service is private. Joe and Savannah. All
right, we see there temporary fencing also being put up at United Healthcare's headquarters. Valerie Castro, thank you so much.
For more now, we are joined by NBC News terrorism analyst and retired ATF special agent in charge, Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, good morning. So New York City Mayor Eric Adams said over the weekend the net is tightening on this suspect. We've got a little bit of new information, new evidence like that backpack, these photos. But with all the high-tech surveillance technology that exists in New York, how has the shooter been able to evade capture? What do you make of that?
Well, you know, they just haven't been able to pick his identity up off a camera or a tip just yet. At least they haven't been able to zero in on him. They may very well have his name in the database of names that have come through on tips, that have given threats to United Healthcare, that have been uncovered as someone who might have lost a loved one in the healthcare system and is upset. There's all kinds of ways that names come into task forces running big cases, and you always have plenty of names and suspects to look at. The key is, can you get, you know, under the theory of transfer, that the killer left some of their DNA, fingerprints, possessions at the crime, can you get something that can positively identify a person that you then look at? You know, it's not necessarily what everybody thinks, that you have to get DNA and put it in a computer and find the answer or the fingerprint. What you really want as the commanders, investigators, is I want that DNA that I know I can identify, or a fingerprint, a partial, a complete fingerprint, something that I can say, if I have a suspect, I can determine if it's him or not. And so that's what they're searching for. Of course, they're looking for the gun in Central Park, which is a very good move. They need to get those bomb and gun sniffing dogs, which ATF supplies them and to all the police, and they'll find a bullet, they'll find a gun. So, you know, get a bunch of them up there, be looking for the gun, get in the pond with the divers. That's another good lead. This is a big week for the detectives, so they need to press and release more of these pictures as they get them.
So, Jim, I mean, police say it appears the suspect took a bus out of the city after this murder. New York is big enough on its own. Just how much harder does this make it for police to find him, knowing this person could be anywhere right now?
No doubt about it. He could be anywhere. He could be in the wind. I mean, he could be, you know, hiking the Appalachian Trail, or went up camping on a mountain, or he could have went back to his home and his job and his routine. The key is that some tip, some lead uncovers a name, and then they can look at the photograph of the name that goes with the name, a driver's license. Oh, this person here is 75 years old. Is clearly not the guy we're looking for. This person here, he meets the age description. What's his connection? Well, he made a threat to the CEO previously. Oh, okay. Well, maybe we ought to investigate him. Let's interview him. Where were you? What do you know? Would you let us take a swab of your saliva? Can we check, see if he has fingerprints? So that's how they're going to catch him. They're going to catch him through information they develop from tips, from leads, and then be able to match it to fingerprints, saliva, DNA at the scene.
We are on day 6 of the investigation. Where do you think police go from here? And would you be concerned if you were involved here that it's been 6 days and you haven't been able to crack this yet?
No, actually, there's a lot of leads here. I've had many very difficult bombing and murder cases where I didn't have full face pictures of the suspect, and this many chances at DNA and fingerprints, maybe a dropped cell phone and a chance of finding a gun and his jacket and a backpack. To me, this is great evidence. And the NYPD detectives, a collective wisdom, experience, training, they're going to put this all together. So, no, I think this is a very, very solvable case. I think they're going to solve it. It's a big week for them. They need to press hard on it, push the picture out. They've got the reward up with the FBI. So those are all good things. They need to press hard this week, maybe get a little break in the case.
All right. Jim Kavanaugh, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, an NBC News exclusive, President-elect Trump gave his first broadcast television interview since winning back the White House last month. Mr. Trump sat down with Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker for a wide-ranging conversation about his plans for a second term and his first 100 days in office.
You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a very tough thing to do. But you have to have, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country.
When asked about members of the January 6th committee?
Honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
When you say that, it carries weight, though. You've tapped these people to lead the Justice Department and FBI.
They can do whatever they want.
But the president-elect says he is looking to pardon people convicted for their actions on January 6th.
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking first day.
Mr. Trump also signaling a major shift in U.S. policy toward Ukraine. Should Ukraine prepare for less aid from the United States after you're sworn into office?
Yeah, probably.
You said you can end the war in 24 hours. You've even said you want to try to end it before you're sworn into office.
I'm trying to.
You're actively trying to?
I am.
Have you talked to President Putin?
No, I have not.
You haven't talked to President Putin since you've been
you
elected?
Mean, no. Well, I don't want to say that, but I haven't spoken to him recently.
So you've spoken to President Putin since you've been elected?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say anything about that because I don't want to do anything that could impede the negotiation.
Our thanks to Kristen Welker.
Now, in the interview, President-elect Trump also discussed his promise to increase tariffs on some imported goods. Mr. Trump argues that it could be a negotiating tactic for future trade deals.
Let's turn now and get a check at your morning news now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with the Monday forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. And I don't say this a lot, but in the Northeast, you're going to need the umbrella over the next several days. We are looking at a soggy start to the week, not only today, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Wednesday is going to be very soggy, helping out the drought situation. This is what radar looks like right now. You can see the rain falling from the Great Lakes all the way through the Ohio Valley, parts of the Appalachians into the Southeast. And we have a flood risk throughout the Gulf Coast states as we go throughout the day because we will see heavy rain. And we're seeing that heavy rain in some spots where you see those brighter colors. Behind this, we're looking at cooler air working in. So as we go throughout today, we're going to see this front making its way a little bit closer, bringing the chance for some rain, heavy at times, and also new snow for the Great Lakes, also New England. The lake effect snow machine just kind of shut down right now. We're seeing some rain. That's going to turn way back up Wednesday through Friday. We're looking at a pretty significant lake effect snow event Wednesday into Friday. Then by tomorrow, we're looking at another surge of moisture along the East Coast. Again, pockets of heavy rain. That's going to help the drought situation, especially in the Northeast, New England, also the Mid-Atlantic. A few stronger storms are possible in the Southeast as well. That could bring some gusty winds, some heavy rain. By Wednesday, showers targeting the Northeast. We're looking at lake effect snow returning late Wednesday into Friday. So we will see accumulating snow once again there. Rainfall forecast, we're going to see a lot of it from New England all the way down to the Southeast. Notice those darker colors. That's where we're going to see the most amount of rain. And that is true, too, for the snow. We're looking at some pinks and purples there along the upper Midwest, the UP Michigan into parts of the Great Lakes where we will see some accumulating snow there. Flash flood risk today for New Orleans, Mobile, but it could extend in portions of Georgia and also Alabama, Mississippi. And then by tomorrow, Columbus, Atlanta, that's going to be the target for some really heavy rainfall. Could see some flash flooding there. But notice that area kind of expands. So now we're talking about portions of the mid-Atlantic as well. It shifts into the Northeast, into New England on Wednesday. Boston, Bangor, Burlington could see flash flooding on Wednesday. And then it's really warm, guys. So this time of year, usually we get rain, but it always comes at a price with, or we get, if you like the mild air, it comes at a price with rain. Yeah. And that's what we're going to see for the next several days, then plummeting Wednesday into Thursday.
So dreaming of a wet Christmas and then cold.
And cold. And just burn.
That would mean it would snow if it rains, right? At that point.
It would snow if it rains. What?
Later when it gets colder.
Oh, yes. Then when it gets snow.
That's all I'm
But sadly,
for.
this is the rain. The precipitation will be gone at that point, right?
Right, exactly.
We just get the cold.
Great. Michelle, thank you. See you in a little bit. What? Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, housing help. More first-time home buyers saying they're getting financial help from family. More on the trend and what it means for the market.
We should not do weather, clearly. That's Michelle's job. All right, up next after the break, a memorable mass at the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral. Back open for the first time since that devastating fire 5 years ago. We are going to take you to Paris next. Legendary rapper Jay-Z is denying an allegation that he and Sean Diddy Combs raped a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah, an anonymous accuser identified only as Jane Doe made the accusation in a civil lawsuit on Sunday. It alleges that the assault happened after she was driven to an MTV Video Music Awards afterparty back in 2000. In a statement to NBC News, Jay-Z, whose real name is Sean Carter, called the accusation idiotic, adding, quote, "These allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever should commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Would you not agree?" Attorneys representing Combs also dismissed the lawsuit, calling it a shameless publicity stunt. Combs is currently behind bars at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after federal prosecutors charged him in September with racketeering and sex trafficking.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos is here to break down some of this for us. Danny, good to have you with us. These are serious allegations. Tell us a little more about what accusations the accuser is making here that happened back in 2000, and just typically how a case like this then would play out in a civil court proceeding.
According to the amended complaint, and when I file amended complaints, it's because new information has come up. Maybe there are new defendants and new claims, and that's sort of what's happening here, but I'll explain the difference. This amended complaint alleges that this 13-year-old plaintiff, when she was 13, wanted to go to the VMA Awards, couldn't get in. A limo driver says, "Come on in, and I'm paraphrasing, "you look like you're Diddy's type," or something like that. She gets in, she goes to the party, and at the party, she is assaulted. Originally, she had alleged, obviously, Diddy or Combs. Now, there isn't really a new defendant in Jay-Z. What the complaint alleges is that somebody that they had originally referred to as, say, Celebrity A, now they're naming as Jay-Z. And so they allege that Jay-Z and Combs were involved in the assault of this 13-year-old, then 13-year-old plaintiff. So Jay-Z was technically already in the complaint. He just wasn't identified.
Walk us through that point that was in Jay-Z's statement there about changing the type of lawsuit here, civil versus criminal.
So Jay-Z essentially is saying, hey, if you're going to bring this case, this sounds like a criminal complaint. I dare you basically to go file a criminal complaint. And what's interesting, too, is that according to the complaint, the plaintiffs explained the reason that they decided to name Jay-Z was allegedly Jay-Z had pushed back on the filing of this complaint. So it's almost like a kind of, hey, if you're going to push us, we're going to name you in this complaint instead of just saying that you're Celebrity A. That's a little bit problematic because if he wasn't a party originally, if he was just Celebrity A, and now the only difference is because Jay-Z pushed back, it raises a question as to what exactly Jay-Z did as a party, but that will all be worked out in discovery.
And talk about what does happen next then with all this.
Well, when you file a civil complaint in federal court, the next steps are very clearly laid out in procedure, but they're not that exciting. The court will get together, the parties get together, they figure out a discovery plan, and then months out, the parties start exchanging discovery, paperwork, documents, and then months beyond that, they start having depositions. But in the civil complaint context, the opening salvo is the filing of the pleading, and then after that, it's mostly quiet until we get to depositions, which are usually not in the public, and then years from now, in federal court, maybe a year and a half, then you get to trial.
All right, Danny, thanks as always.
In Paris, the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral is open again after that devastating fire back in 2019.
Yeah, the pews of the beloved landmark were filled with worshipers yesterday as hundreds flocked to the cathedral for the first Sunday Mass in 5 years. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from Paris with more on the inaugural Mass and the cathedral's grand opening. Hey, Jay, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning to you. And that excitement has not waned a bit. In fact, there were lines outside of the cathedral this morning before sunrise. The excitement surrounding the reopening of Notre Dame fueled by a historic weekend here.
The solemn toll of the ancient bells. The haunting moan of the cathedral's grand organ, along with the angelic serenade of a youth choir, announcing the return of Notre Dame.
It's a symbol of Paris, of course, but it's a symbol of humanity and freedom and kindness all over the world.
The iconic church ravaged by fire 5.5 years ago. Firefighters rushing in, followed by construction teams, artisans, craftsmen, and architects. Close to 2,000 men and women, many of those heroes, honored with a standing ovation that lasted several minutes as they take their place in the cathedral they brought back to life.
Such an amazing, amazing structure. So the flying buttresses and gargoyles and the Rosas window, it's amazing.
They did it right.
Amazing.
Very proud of them.
Saturday, dignitaries and heads of state gather for the opening ceremony, including First Lady Dr. Jill Biden and President-elect Donald Trump. Sunday morning, Paris Archbishop Laurent Ulrich leads the first Mass since the fire, joined by nearly 170 bishops from France and around the world and 2,500 invited guests. A special moment during the service, the blessing of a new bronze altar. Then Sunday evening, the first Mass open to the public. The faithful finally returning to worship inside the pristine, refurbished cathedral.
Yeah, and beginning this evening, they will extend the hours of visitation at Notre Dame until 10 p.m. That's about another 4 to 5 hours, depending on the day. They expect as many as 40,000 to visit the iconic church each day. And Joe, Savannah, just for some perspective, before the fire, Notre Dame was the most visited site in Europe with about 13 million a year. They expect to see that many in the next 3 months here.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. That is just so neat to see. Jay Gray, so awesome you're there. Thank you very much.
Coming up, it is a common ingredient in some of our favorite snacks and drinks. Now a controversial red food dye closer than ever to a nationwide ban.
Yep, next more on the move to remove artificial coloring from the food we buy. You're watching Morning News Now. We're back now with the growing questions about drone sightings over parts of New York and New Jersey. Well, police are on a high-tech hunt trying to track them down. NBC News correspondent George Solis has the details.
The investigation into reports of small car-sized drones hovering over New York and New Jersey is deepening.
Oh, it's slowing down.
Authorities in Toms River, New Jersey, launching their own drone offensive for a closer look. Their eye in the sky, capturing one of the drones in motion.
You're not targeting or going after them, so to speak. Is there a methodology and reason why?
Well, right now we just want to identify what it is. The way it was explained, they're 2 feet bigger than our drones, or 2 times the size rather, so they're about 4 feet, and it looks like it's a fixed wing type craft. What concerns us mostly is that at this point nobody's seen any of these units taking off or landing.
This is a significant threat to U.S. national security.
Retired 4-star general and NBC News military analyst Barry McCaffrey tells NBC News there's good reason why local and federal agencies are treading carefully.
When you see something of this capacity, you wonder why it would be needed. What are they doing? It implies a heavy payload, and a heavy payload would be either something dangerous, a bomb, but in this case, surveillance of some sort.
Look what's back again. Same spot as last night.
Meanwhile, more sightings of the large drones continue to proliferate social media. New Jersey resident Michael Marciano capturing these images on Saturday.
Coming right above my house.
The FBI not commenting on the drone activity to NBC News, but setting up a tip line for people to report any sightings.
It's moving really fast now.
Growing concern as the mystery in the sky continues. George Solis, NBC News, Toms River, New Jersey.
The Food and Drug Administration says it may finally move to ban red dye number 3.
Yeah, that's a synthetic coloring. It's made from petroleum found in drinks, snacks, cereals, candies. On top of that, the FDA is also looking at reevaluating red dye number 40. In the last 3 years alone, 3 states have either passed or introduced laws to ban certain artificial dyes, citing research that they can cause hyperactivity in children. The FDA maintains food dyes are safe when used in ways recommended by the agency.
More on this. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Doctor, good to have you with us. So red dye number 3, it's been under fire for quite some time now, at least a decade. What are people most worried about when it comes to this?
Yeah, Joe and Savannah, I think the most concerning things are some of the linkages to hyperactivity disorder. There have been studies in male rats that have early predisposition to cancer. And I think overall, just more concerning is that there's growing evidence that these color additives can cause harm, especially in children where your brains are growing, you don't deal with as much body mass, that can warrant a ban overall.
So, Dr. Patel, what does the research say? You just mentioned some of it, some of the things that we're concerned about with rats and with children's brains, but are there any definitive studies here on the positive or negative effects of red dye number 3?
Yeah, so the FDA advisory committee did look at a review of some of these kind of links between hyperactivity disorder, artificial food dyes, beyond red dyes, and did see that there was what we call a causal relationship. Savannah, we talk about this a lot. Sometimes we do studies and we correlate things, like you find something and you're not sure if the thing that you're talking about causes it. In this case, the advisory committee did say that upon review of many studies that they did see a causal link between exposure to color dyes and hyperactivity in children in a general population. So that, that's exactly where I think the kind of question now is that this is something that is most concerning. That study, by the way, these kind of back and forth between the advisory committees about these causal relationships is also one of the reasons that these reviews, I think, are constant and important. And right now, the FDA oversees 75% of the food supply, but we don't actually have as much study into the harm after the food is out in the market. So I think that added to these studies and kind of the advisory committees, as well as what Europe and California have done with banning a number of these substances has led to, I think, some of the kind of laws that you're seeing today, and also some of the FDA kind of action that you're finally seeing.
Yeah, so I mean, with states already taking action, how long could it take to see a ban like this go into effect? And just what would be the impact of a nationwide ban?
Right, so let's talk about what California did. California did this last year, but their effect won't go into place into 2027. That's because you need to give time for food manufacturers to not only put warnings into place, labels into place, but also to put substitutes. That doesn't happen overnight, Joe. So I wouldn't expect anything that could be done this year or next year to actually take place for several years to give people that same amount of time. But I want to just warn people, red dyes and some of these other dyes that we're talking about might be very obvious in bright drinks or in candies. That's what I thought. I was surprised to learn that you can find this in everything from casseroles to kind of products that I wouldn't think had red dye, like vegan meat products, for example. So it's in a lot of things. Look at your labels until then.
And it'll take a lot of time to find substitutes for all those different products as
and
well.
You think about something like vegan meat products when you're probably in some cases doing that for a health step and they're still dying, something like that.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Patel, thank you so much.
Coming up, is buying a home becoming a family affair?
More first-time home buyers are turning to their parents for help with the down payment. We're going to unpack the trend and how it's impacting the market. Stay with us. This is Morning News Now. We're back with some financial headlines, starting with the latest legal blow to TikTok's presence here in America.
Yes, NBC's Bertha Coombs joins us with another news. Bertha, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe and Savannah. Yeah, TikTok is vowing to appeal all the way to the Supreme Court after a federal appeals court upheld a law that could lead to the social media platform being banned here in the U.S. The ruling on Friday would require TikTok to break ties with its China-based parent company, ByteDance, or be banned by mid-January. That is part of a law that was passed by Congress. Experts say TikTok will have to be solid, which could be a big win for rivals like, or rather, will have to be sold, rather. That could be a big win for rivals like Instagram, YouTube, and Snap if users move to those apps. President-elect Donald Trump, who tried to ban TikTok during his first term, said on the campaign trail that he is now against a ban and would work to save TikTok. Meantime, Walmart is tying a bow on the holiday season with some last-minute savings and delivery options for all of you procrastinators out there. Customers can order items by 12:30 p.m. local time on December 23rd for delivery by Christmas Day. But wait, there's more. By 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve for express delivery and noon on Christmas Eve for in-store pickup. Walmart is also launching its last-minute gifts, even starting from today through Christmas. And that's going to be both online and in stores. They include deep discounts on top brands across tech, toys, fashion, home, and beauty. And apparently more Americans plan to tip this holiday season, but the dollar amounts aren't expected to be any bigger than last year. A new bank rate survey shows the average holiday tip will remain flat for 4 of 6 primary service providers, housekeepers, teachers, childcare, and mail carriers, while they're expected to be lower for landscapers and trash collectors. Among those who tip, their primary motivation is to say thank you, followed by rewarding good service, being generous, and because it's expected.
We don't answer the survey like that.
Our mail
well, I have to.
Yeah, right?
Peer pressure. They don't want to be the person on the block.
Yeah, but,
sounds like a
nice.
Grinch.
It is. It's a very nice thing to do this time.
It's always nice to say thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Bertha.
Yes. Well, let's stay on your money. So home prices are soaring, right? Well, new research on home ownership suggests many first-time buyers are turning to mom and dad for help.
The personal finance website Bankrate.com found 26% of younger home buyers relied on family money, like help from their parents, to afford a down payment. The average down payment for a first-time home buyer is $26,700. That's about 8% of the average home price. Joining us now to help put all this into perspective is Pierre DeBoss. He's managing partner at Romer DeBoss. They're a real estate firm here in New York. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So talk about it. I mean, just how big of a trend is this right now? Is it something recent? How long has it been happening?
So it's really picked up in the last 5 years because when you look at the market since the pandemic took place, housing prices appreciated between 50 to 100% throughout the country. So we have unequivocally an affordability crisis in America. Now, the entry-level buyer has to lean on their parents to provide some kind of assistance on down payment. When you're talking about your average down payment about $26,000, your median home price in the country is roughly $425,000. And a lot of banks will require 10% down payment. It takes majority of Americans their lifetime to save that money. So it is a huge problem what we have in the country.
Let's talk about the impact here. What does this do to the market? Why is this important?
So it's going to drive up pricing because now it's additional liquidity. And I will tell you, in the next 10 years, we have the greatest transfer of wealth in U.S. history that's going to take place. There's about $84 trillion of wealth that's expected to be transferred in the next decade. What do people do when they inherit money? They use the first dollar to go buy a home. So when you have a higher purchasing price power, I really think that housing prices in the country only continue to appreciate, even after the astronomical level of appreciation we've seen.
So, yeah, let's look ahead. Any market changes or regulatory changes on the horizon that could change this trend in some way or another?
Not at all. The only thing that could impact it, so by gifting money, generally is a gift tax due. But in order to gift the money tax-free, you're able to utilize an estate tax exemption while you're alive. So unless that is taken out of the equation, this trend continues and only grows.
So interesting to see. Does it concern you at all that this happens in terms of other people who are trying to get into the market?
You know, it's concerning in some ways. Affordability in general is concerning. But I do, I empathize with your entry-level buyer that if you have access to this ability to have additional capital, why not, right? Like, I mean, it's such an undaunting task to enter the housing market. The barrier to entry has gone up so significantly in the last 5 years. I mean, I'm actually concerned that the first-time home buyer will be axed out of the equation for good if something does not change.
Yeah. Pierre DeBoss, really good information. Thanks. Good to see you. Coming up, you could say they saw the signs. Swedish 90s band Ace of Base is back together, kind of.
Yeah, when we come back, the new documentary about their meteoric rise to fame. So don't turn around. You're watching Morning News Now. Welcome back. Looks like baseball superstar Juan Soto will be staying in New York, but instead of wearing Yankee pinstripes, he'll step right up and meet the Mets. The superstar free agent outfielder has reportedly agreed to a record 15-year, $765 million deal with the New York Mets. It is the largest contract in sports history. The 26-year-old spent this past season across town in the Bronx, helping the Yankees make their first World Series appearance in 15 years. Mets rallied from a slow start this past season to clinch a postseason berth before losing to the eventual World Series champ, the LA Dodgers, in the NLCS. Soto broke into the big leagues as a 19-year-old phenom with the Washington Nationals, later led them to a World Series title in 2019. Did you watch SNL this last weekend? There was an opening sketch where Soto was talking with the church lady. She said, well, why don't you use that money to help the needy? And he said, well, I could go to the Mets. Well,
there you go.
We'll see what happens. The Mets had a good season, though, so we'll see if we can help them win a World Series.
Oh, my goodness.
A lot of money.
Whew. All right, thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Well, finally this hour, we're talking about the Swedish pop band Ace of Base. The group rose to the top of the charts in the early 1990s with singles like The Sign and All That She Wants. And now a new documentary is chronicling their path to fame. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas sat down with two of the group's members to discuss the ups and downs of their journey.
Ace of Base's bright, infectious sound helped define pop in the early 90s with catchy hooks like All That She Wants. The group from Gothenburg, Sweden is a family affair consisting of siblings Jenny, Lynn, and Jonas and their childhood friend Ulf. But despite this family's chart-topping success, they haven't sung together in over 25 years.
Is it possible to see the rest of the studio?
But Ace of Base is now back in the spotlight with a new 3-part docuseries. Streaming in the U.S. on Viaplay and add-on on Amazon Prime Video.
I think the real story about Ace of Base has never really been told.
What I wanted with the documentary is I wanted to tell the hardships, but I also wanted to tell how to get whole again.
The intimate series featuring never-before-seen home video footage.
I did have like 200 hours of film material from the early 90s until recent days.
Showing how the group broke through in the U.S. market with the help of veteran music executive Clive Davis, who insisted that the band add another single to their debut album.
Jonas came up with a great song, The Sign. And when I heard that song, I said, wow. Even to the point that, look, for our territory, I want to call the album The Sign.
Oh, I saw the sign, and it opened up my eyes.
Do you think that there would be an Ace of Base without Clive?
Well, not here in the States. That wouldn't have been the same at all. He was amazing.
Without him in the U.S., I'm pretty convinced we would never reach #1.
Not long after that meteoric success, including 3 Grammy nominations in 1995, Sister Lynn stepped back from the spotlight, and the original 4 members have not performed publicly since.
It almost seems like she disappeared. Where is she now? What is she up to? I feel like so many of us want to know.
Well, she's leading her life, and she says, I want to be out of the eye. I want to be out of the attention. And I say, yeah, fine.
In the wake of fellow 90s band Oasis announcing their reunion tour, there have been lots of questions as to whether Ace of Base would ever reunite. They previously said they wouldn't.
Ace of Base, är inte det felstavat?
But is this new documentary a sign that Ace of Base could take the stage together once again?
I've been trying to push to make a reunion for the past 10 years, but it has to work as well, and we have to be able to do a great performance for the fans that we can be proud of.
Everybody's over 50, and as I say, the time they knock on my door, I got it all prepared.
For now, Ulf and Jenny are hoping that the new docuseries will give their fans a taste of all that they want.
No one's gonna drag you up to get into the light where you belong.
Chloe Malas, NBC News, New York.
Now those songs will be in your head all day long.
You're welcome.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now. Good Monday morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, President-elect Donald Trump's plan for America. He detailed plans for his second stint in the White House with our own Kristen Welker on Meet the Press.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it, and it's a very tough thing to do.
More from their extensive conversation, including how Mr. Trump responded to questions on whether Americans will have to shell out more money for those proposed tariffs on America's biggest trading partners. Also this morning, historic scenes in Syria. Rebels topple President Bashar al-Assad's regime, forcing him to flee the country. The reactions pouring in from leaders across the globe as the nation enters an uncertain new chapter. Plus, Paris's iconic Notre Dame Cathedral rising from the ashes. It officially reopened its doors over the weekend, more than 5 years after that devastating fire. We're going to bring you the remarkable inside story of its return to form. And it's the end of the eras. Taylor Swift taking one final bow on her record-breaking tour in Vancouver over the weekend. We're going to have all the news from her big farewell concerts, where one familiar Swiftie was there, also in the audience.
That's me.
Of course you were there.
I could have missed the last weekend.
I look forward to hearing your time spent soaking. How many were there this year, or this last 2 years?
149 total dates.
And you were at
and
148.
I wish. I so wish. I was lucky. I got to see it quite a few times.
That's good. All right, good for you. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's begin, of course, with our exclusive sit-down with President-elect Trump in his first broadcast TV interview since winning re-election last month.
Yeah, Mr. Trump spoke with Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker, where he laid out his vision for a second term in the White House. And as Kristen reports, the president-elect discussed his priorities for day one and beyond, which include tackling immigration as well as proposed tariffs on major U.S. trading partners.
Good day to you. In our interview, President-elect Trump laid out a sweeping agenda for the next 4 years and his first 100 days in office. He said he wants to focus on the economy, the border, and getting his nominees confirmed. Have you thought about your message? We began our conversation with President-elect Trump on the economy and his threat to impose tariffs on America's three biggest trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China, which experts warn could lead to a surge in prices. Can you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich.
The president-elect is standing by one of his key campaign promises, saying he has no choice but to deport everyone who is illegally in the United States. You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a very tough thing to do. But you have to have, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally.
The president-elect also vowed to end birthright citizenship, a right that's guaranteed by the 14th Amendment.
We're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Mr. Trump did say he's open to finding a way to protect dreamers, those brought illegally to the U.S. as children and raised here.
I think we can work with the Democrats and work something out.
Asked about members of the January 6th committee, the president-elect argued they should be imprisoned without any evidence that they violated the law.
Honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
In a statement, Liz Cheney, the Republican vice chair of the January 6th committee, denounced Mr. Trump's threat as a, quote, assault on the rule of law and the foundations of our republic. The president also said he is looking to pardon people convicted for their actions on January 6th. And you can watch my full interview with the president-elect on NBCNews.com. Back to you.
All right, Kristen, thank you.
Let's turn now to Syria, where many there are celebrating the stunning downfall of President Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian government.
The Syrian leader fled to Russia over the weekend in the wake of a lightning-fast two-week offensive by rebel forces. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has more from the Syrian capital of Damascus.
Good morning. I am now right in the center of Damascus, in the main square. More than 1,000 people have come here to celebrate. They've come from all around the country. There's been a lot of celebratory gunfire, and I'm standing right now on a symbol of what has happened here. This was a government tank. It was abandoned in the last minute as the Syrian government, the Syrian army, this entire regime completely collapsed.
It is ultimately how all dictators go. Jubilant crowds tore down a statue of the now former President Bashar al-Assad's father, the founder of a dynasty that ruled Syria with an iron fist for more than half a century. We saw the same scenes as pictures of the Assad family were defaced at the border crossing where we entered Syria this morning from neighboring Lebanon. We are now inside Syria. We just crossed the border, and you can see there are no controls anymore. The government is gone. There are rebels, gunmen on the street. The regime has collapsed, and you notice that the second you enter this country. The mood is celebratory and welcoming. People are proud of this new dawn and still in disbelief that Assad is really gone. As we drove to the capital, we passed boys on an abandoned government tank cheering Hurriya, Arabic for freedom. In the end, it was the army that sealed Assad's fate. Soldiers refused to fight. They faded away and ran as the rebels, led by Islamists, rolled into Damascus unopposed. The rebels' leader, once an al-Qaeda supporter and considered a terrorist by the U.S., is promising moderation and to work for all Syrians. He has ordered his forces to prevent looting and leave civilians unharmed. And so far, they appear to be doing that. The rebels' first priority appears to be breaking into Syrian prisons to free thousands of political prisoners kept in horrific conditions of torture and deprivation. Syrians are rummaging through Assad's empty palaces and seeing his lost life of privilege. A video claims to show Assad's fleet of luxury vehicles, sports cars, SUVs, and exotic collectibles. He won't be needing them in Russia. The Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed Assad and his family arrived in Moscow, given asylum for humanitarian reasons. Syria now has a new hope, new possibilities, and significant challenges as the map of the Middle East is being redrawn by the hour.
All right, our thanks to Richard Engel for that report.
Closer to home, the manhunt is widening for the suspect who police believe shot and killed United Healthcare CEO on a Midtown Manhattan sidewalk.
Yeah, over the weekend, police released 2 new surveillance pictures of a person of interest, as they're calling them, from inside and outside of a taxi cab. And we're finding out more about what was inside the backpack that police recovered in Central Park that might belong to the gunman. NBC's Sam Brock has been following the story for us and has the latest from Midtown.
Those 2 new photos are added to a growing list of visuals that the NYPD has released to the public as they try to find the person responsible for killing Brian Thompson, who they now believe has slipped out of the city. Police right now are still searching for the gunman's bike and firearm, but the recovery of a backpack could pave the way for critical clues. With a quickly expanding manhunt still underway this morning.
The net is tightening, and we're going to bring this person to justice.
Police have now released 2 new photos of a person of interest wanted for questioning in the Midtown murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. One shows a man wearing a black hooded jacket and surgical mask in the back seat of a taxi. The other, that man on the sidewalk, through the car window. Police say they're from the same taxi he took to the George Washington Bridge bus terminal shortly after the murder, where the NYPD says it has video of the man entering the bus center Wednesday morning, but not leaving.
We also have reason to believe that the person in question has left New York City.
Investigators combing Central Park over the weekend, with NYPD's elite scuba dive team scouring the lake, according to 2 law enforcement sources, for the firearm used in the murder. After a gray backpack was recovered in the park Friday that police believe belonged to the gunman. 3 sources say a jacket was found inside, though it's unclear if it's the same one worn by the shooter. And 2 sources say investigators also found Monopoly money.
You look at it and you're like, was some purpose of that? What, like, why Monopoly money?
Detectives say DNA evidence is still being processed. As for the potential that the shooter took a bus out of town, the NYPD says they don't know which one he might have boarded. Some of the many destinations listed on the Port Authority's website include Boston, Buffalo, Binghamton, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. In the wake of the murder, backlash against the insurance industry.
I don't think anyone should feel bad about this.
From a shooter look-alike contest in New York City to critical comments online, as United Healthcare headquarters in Minnesota is now surrounded by temporary fencing and a police trailer. The company says they're partnering with local law enforcement to ensure a safe work environment and reinforce security. In addition to that scuba search in Central Park, a senior law enforcement official says the NYPD also conducted 2 other searches on Sunday near the GW Bridge and that bus center, one of them being Fort Tryon Park, the other some local subway stations. Obviously, neither one yielded a weapon. We've also confirmed that Brian Thompson's funeral is today, and it's going to be a private service. In Midtown Manhattan, Sam Brock, NBC News. Back to you.
Sam, thank you.
Well, for more, we are joined by NBC News national security analyst and distinguished research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, Clint Watts. Clint, good morning. Thank you, as always, for joining us. So we're 5 days out from this shooting, still waiting for police to publicly identify this person. What do you make of the fact that at least we right now do not know the identity of this person?
This case is so different than a lot of them that we've seen in recent years, where we're looking at a mass shooter or maybe someone who's done a crime who didn't go to such lengths to really hide their way into the city, and in terms of their reconnaissance, and then in terms of their withdrawal. So this shooter has done a lot of things to keep law enforcement off of his trail. At the same point, there is some key evidence there. I think in this case, we're getting more pictures by the day. You're seeing NYPD working through all of that video footage. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more incrementally that they find. The second thing that we are learning is the motive, right? What's in the backpack? What's left at the scene? Those things sort of speak to this ideology that's probably targeted against United Health and its CEO. And then at the same point, I think there are other things to look at which we haven't seen. We haven't seen an online presence. We haven't seen a manifesto, those sorts of things. Very different from other cases that are out there. It could be that law enforcement is much further along and they're just not disclosing that information to the public. They don't want to set off anything that the shooter might use to evade capture.
Taking everything into consideration we know so far, are you surprised this is taking so long?
I am, in the sense that we have New York City has got more cameras just about than other London, Singapore, a couple places. Second, all of that technological footage and everything, great law enforcement, partnerships with federal, still not a major breakthrough that we've seen so far. So that is surprising. But it also speaks to this individual. They may be kept out of public life. They didn't have a social media presence. Went to great steps. They were in the city for 10 days, doing reconnaissance probably. Other things we don't know. How did he get the bike in New York City if he came in from out of town? So there's still a lot of gaps there that I wouldn't be surprised if law enforcement closes in on fairly quickly.
You mentioned some of the things that are left behind, the things that police have found. Some of them are making some headlines, raising some eyebrows, kind of these bizarre details, monopoly money in this backpack that may have belonged to the suspect, the things that were written on each round that was found at the scene. What do you make of some of the kind of stranger details like that?
Yeah, it seemed like this shooter really wanted to leave a message, and he didn't leave any ambiguity. Remember, at first there was talk about a contract killer potentially or something like that. Definitely doesn't seem like the case. Seems like it's very focused on the insurance industry and, really bringing to forward a sort of an ideological motive in this. This could really spawn other sorts of attacks, or it could be inspirational, sadly, for others in the online environment. So all of these things quite concerning. I wouldn't be surprised if further down the investigation, other clues like this emerge.
So looking at the bus situation now, knowing that this person's probably not in New York City anymore, could be any other number of places. How do investigators tackle that when suddenly the map is just so much bigger?
Yeah, I'm sure law enforcement is taking the timeline back to try and see if there's any clues that they could use from their arrival in the city and then moving it forward. There's a number of bus routes that come from that station, but there are fewer than, let's say, Port Authority. If that's the case, they now try and map all of those out. Are there cameras at the destination of each of these cities? Can they start to make that matching up? That's bringing law enforcement together. That's where the FBI is critically important, is the nationwide federal law enforcement effort. They can really put those things together much more quickly.
All right. Glenn Watts, Clint, thank you so much.
Time now for your forecast. This morning, millions are still feeling the effects from that massive lake effect snowstorm, and there's actually more to come.
Heavy rain is coming over here in the east and in parts of the south. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with the latest on all that weather. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, you'll need the umbrella the next couple of days. We're looking at rain, and it could be heavy at times. Very beneficial for the northeast and mid-Atlantic with the drought going on. So this is what Monday looks like. Most of the active weather is from New England down to portions of the southeast, especially along the Gulf Coast. You see those brighter colors. We are expecting the chance for some flooding there. Otherwise, we're mainly quiet across the country today, with the exception also of the northern plains, the upper Midwest. We have snow falling, a wintry mix. Also, the wind is blowing. So tough travel in that area, those areas as we go throughout today. Pacific Northwest, we're doing good. Southwest as well, nice and dry there. By Wednesday, most of the active weather will be in the west still. We're going to have some colder air working in behind this system. That's going to ramp up that lake effect snow machine once again. And we are looking at another significant event Wednesday night into Friday in terms of lake effect snow. Otherwise, on Wednesday, notice all this heavy rain. These are really bright colors, kind of just showing us that we are looking at a soaking rain on Wednesday from New England all the way along the coast, the mid-Atlantic down to the southeast. Could see some thunderstorms on the warm end of this system. On the colder end, we're looking at the chance for some snow. That's the interior parts of the Northeast, the Appalachians, into the Ohio Valley, also the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest. Chilly behind this. Notice we have 20s and teens behind it, and then rain and snow in the Pacific Northwest. That's going to set up a few days of being really active in the West. This is Friday. Notice that the West does stay active from the Pacific Northwest, the Intermountain West, with some snow mixing in down to parts of central and northern California. Could see some snow along those higher elevations in the mountains. Plenty of sunshine throughout the northern plains, the central plains, southern plains, drying out in the east. That's good news later on Friday. From New England, the Great Lakes, it looks like it'll be a little bit drier as opposed to Wednesday and Thursday, and the southeast looking good as well. This is what radar looks like right now, so you need the umbrella soon in portions of the northeast. We're starting to see that rain move into portions of the mid-Atlantic, the Ohio Valley. You're seeing the rain down to portions of the Carolinas, the Gulf Coast states, and also the southeast. We're looking at heavier rain, too, with those brighter returns in yellows, orange, and also some reds there. Now, as we go throughout the rest of today, we're looking at that snow developing in portions of the Great Lakes. We're already seeing some of that snow falling, so that's new snow there, and also parts of New England, and then heavy rain shifting across the East Coast as well. Tuesday, we're going to see more rain into the East Coast, and then Wednesday, that's going to be the real soaker along the East Coast. Back to you guys.
Right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the emotional reopening of an iconic Paris landmark over the weekend, more than 5 years after a tragic fire closed its doors.
But first, after the break, shocking new allegations swirling around rapper Jay-Z. We're going to dig into them and how he's responding next.
Welcome back. Let's get to the explosive new allegations against rapper and entrepreneur Jay-Z, whose real name is Sean Carter.
A new civil lawsuit accuses him of raping a 13-year-old girl with Sean Diddy homes ago. Both men are denying those claims. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett is here with more on the details. Laura, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning to you. Ever since Combs was indicted by federal prosecutors last fall, these parties that he was known for hosting, in which celebrities were there, have been the subject of intense scrutiny. But the blast radius around the star has been relatively contained until now.
This morning, disturbing new claims against music icon Jay-Z. A civil lawsuit detailing sexual assault, originally brought against his longtime friend Sean Diddy Combs, now adding new allegations against the rapper, whose real name is Sean Carter, claims both men deny. The anonymous woman, who was 13 at the time, described in the lawsuit as being drugged and raped at an MTV VMAs after party she says Combs hosted in 2000. According to the suit, she recalls accepting a drink from a waitress that made her feel woozy and lightheaded before she says she was raped by Jay-Z and then Combs in a bedroom as an unnamed female celebrity watched. Jay-Z swiftly issuing a statement Sunday calling the claims heinous and accusing the woman's attorney of trying to blackmail him, suggesting the attorney had tried to seek a settlement first, adding, quote, "I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. My heart and support goes out to the true victims in the world." The billionaire, who is married to megastar Beyonce, saying he is heartbroken. The couple will have to explain the, quote, cruelty and greed of people to their children. Combs, too, has denied any allegations of sexual assault. Earlier this fall, the plaintiff's attorney, Tony Busby, a personal injury lawyer in Texas, held a press conference after Combs was indicted on federal sex trafficking charges, suggesting more fallout would follow.
I expect that through this process, many powerful people will be exposed.
Combs pleaded not guilty to the charges and continues to deny the allegations Busby has made against him in a string of civil lawsuits, which Combs' attorneys have dismissed as shameless publicity stunts. But this marks the first suit publicly naming another high-profile celebrity.
Now, in a statement posted online, Busby acknowledged sending Jay-Z a letter prior to filing this complaint we're talking about, seeking a confidential mediation, but says his client never demanded a penny from Jay-Z at the time. She is now seeking an unspecified amount in damages, guys.
Laura, 20 years, it's a long time. Explain how a civil suit like this is even possible, how you go about figuring something like this out after an alleged encounter so much longer.
Yeah, I think people have trouble sort of getting their minds around how are you supposed to corroborate something from 20 years ago. The New York law that's on the books right now actually allows for this. When somebody has been victimized as a minor, New York actually makes a provision for that in these circumstances. Now, whether you are able to come forward with enough evidence in court to actually have a jury to find him liable is a whole different story, but she's at least allowed to make the claim under that New York law, and she had a 2-year look-back window that actually allows her to do this, and it would actually expire this coming March, and so time was running out for her to do this if she was going to come forward.
All right, we know you'll stay on it for us. Laura, thank you so much.
Yep.
International headlines now. An overseas travel ban is in effect for South Korea's president after his attempt to enforce martial law last week.
We have Megan Fitzgerald joining us now with that and more. Hey, Megan, good morning.
Yeah, guys, good morning. That's right. We start in South Korea, where President Yoon Suk-yeol has been barred from leaving his country after officials launched an investigation into his actions. Now, the justice minister made the decision today after investigators are trying to figure out if Yoon led an insurrection after his botched and brief declaration of martial law last week. This comes after Yoon survived an impeachment vote over the weekend by receiving support from his own party. But South Korea has been plunged into a state of deep uncertainty. And Ghana's former president, John Mahama, has been reelected after citizens went to the polls. His rival conceded yesterday morning because he said that he didn't want any tensions to spew. This is certainly a blow for the ruling party and comes at a time when people are experiencing great economic hardship and inflation. And guys, a really sweet story coming out of Ukraine this morning, where an organization comprised of volunteers called Reindeers are working quickly to grant the Christmas wishes of Ukrainian children, many of whom live on or near the front lines. These children write letters, oftentimes sharing a bit of their own experience and making a request for what they'd like for Christmas. Those requests are then posted to a website where people can donate by purchasing gifts, which are then delivered by these reindeers all throughout the holiday season, making sure no child is left behind. Guys.
Oh, amazing to see. Megan, thank you very much.
You even have the antlers. I love that. All right. Staying overseas, France's Notre Dame Cathedral is officially open again, more than 5 years after a devastating fire destroyed parts of the iconic Paris landmark. Over the weekend, world leaders attended a ceremony marking the grand reopening of the cathedral, and Today Show co-anchor Craig Melvin was there to watch.
A remarkable scene inside Notre Dame overnight as the faithful returned for the first public mass. I joined the service to witness a moving moment for Catholics here and around the world. The cathedral officially reopened Saturday with a service that drew more than 100 world leaders, including President-elect Donald Trump, First Lady Dr. Joe Biden, Britain's Prince William, and Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. Sunday morning, the inaugural Mass with nearly 170 bishops from across France to witness the consecration of the new altar, which houses the relics of 5 saints. New York's Cardinal Dolan played a prominent role in the service.
When those bells rang, when those doors opened, you just kind of felt like you really were experiencing opening up God's family into God's house.
The moment you step into the restored Notre Dame, it's hard to believe the cathedral was nearly destroyed by fire.
Oh my, that gaping hole that was the roof after the fire, as you can see, it's gone. It's beautiful.
The walls, the floors, the pillars, the artwork, everything painstakingly cleaned or rebuilt.
I mean, one of the things that's most noticeable, but it is so much brighter. All of it.
I was outside the cathedral in 2019 in the immediate aftermath of the fire.
This morning, the fire is thankfully finally out as investigators continue to search for a cause.
The change over 5 short years, hard to comprehend.
This is roughly where all of that burnt debris that fell from the ceiling, the metal that fell, the glass, all of that stuff was here, just in front of the sanctuary, as you can see now. It's all gleaming.
While I was inside the cathedral, a group of firefighters came for a tour. They looked around, silent, humbled by what has become of what they saved.
That's the rooster that stood atop the spire.
The flames warped and nearly melted it, but they didn't destroy it. While highlighting its former glory, visitors will notice new designs for the altar, the baptismal, and the future home of a priceless relic.
And this is where the crown of thorns is actually going to be when it arrives in just a few days. Of course, the crown of thorns, believed to be the crown worn by Jesus during the crucifixion.
We were given special access to see restored areas of Notre Dame the public has not yet seen. From there, a one-of-a-kind view of the rose windows, fully restored. Though the building is spotless, there is some evidence of damage left behind.
The flames were so intense that day that the lead roof here actually started to melt and drip into the cathedral. If you look closely, you can see in the right hand of Jesus there, they left the lead deliberately to remind everyone of what happened that day.
A poignant new symbol, as this ancient cathedral is set to welcome millions making the pilgrimage to experience its newfound glory.
And our thanks to Craig Melvin for that report and really that tour of Notre Dame. More events are planned for this week. French officials expect up to 40,000 visitors every day.
Wow. Well, coming up, the latest on a criminal trial that's captivating America.
After the break, why a judge dismissed a manslaughter charge against the man accused in the chokehold death of a man on a New York subway. That's next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Jury deliberations are set to resume today after the judge overseeing the trial of Daniel Penny dismissed the manslaughter charge against him.
Yeah, Penny, a former Marine, still faces a lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide in the chokehold death of subway performer Jordan Neely. For more, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Sabalos. Danny, good morning. Thank you for joining us on this. So let's talk about the difference in these charges here. What is that there between manslaughter and then this charge of criminally negligent homicide?
It comes down to awareness of risk creation. When we're talking about manslaughter, the defendant is aware that he's creating a substantial and unjustified risk. When it comes to criminally negligent homicide, instead, it doesn't matter whether the government can prove that the defendant knew what he was doing was risky, as long as all of us from the outside looking in can say objectively what he did was risky, whether or not he was aware of it. And that is a lesser charge because it's obviously easier to prove what we all think of someone's conduct as opposed to what was actually in his mind, how he was aware or not aware of risk at the time of the alleged crime.
So the manslaughter charge was dropped after jurors said that they were deadlocked. How common is it to see a judge drop a charge like this so late in the trial? And could this send any sort of message to the jurors, or were the jurors sending a message to the judge, perhaps?
Right. What's controversial here is actually that the government, the people, decided to voluntarily dismiss that manslaughter charge once they realized that the jury was deadlocked. And it gave them a strategic advantage because now, going into the weekend, the judge essentially says to the jurors, okay, you have this harder charge. The more difficult one to prove is now gone. Now you only have to deliberate on an easier burden of proof for the government. So instead of deciding this actual knowledge of the risk he created, now you only have to decide whether or not what he did was criminally negligent, irrespective of what was in his mind or what risk he perceived or didn't perceive. And that is what the defense is complaining about. They're concerned it could lead to what's called a compromised verdict, which might give them an issue on appeal if Penny is convicted of this lesser included charge.
Could he, with double jeopardy laws, be tried again on manslaughter down the line?
Generally, when it comes to mistrials, if this was a complete mistrial, then yes, the government can retry that case. They don't always do so. That is a more political decision, whether or not, now that they've gotten a test result back from a jury as to the strength of their case, sometimes the government declines to retry. But in a high-profile case like this, when it comes to saving face for prosecutors, and that's my biased defense attorney hat coming out, then in all likelihood, even if they get a full mistrial, I would see the Manhattan DA's office retrying this case.
All right, Danny Cevallos, thank you as always.
In a landmark class action settlement, LGBTQ plus folks in New York who were denied fertility care coverage from Aetna are eligible to get paid back for the fertility treatment that they paid for out of pocket. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has more.
For the first time ever, LGBTQ plus people in New York can get paid back for the costly fertility treatments that Aetna, one of the largest insurers in the country, denied covering for years because of their sexual orientation. A historic multi-million-dollar class action settlement now also requires Aetna to change the way it defines infertility to include protections for LGBTQ plus people who can't conceive children on their own. A case that could impact hundreds of people in the state, those who already use things like IUI and IVF or plan to in the future. Emma Goydell, a mother of 3, is the lead plaintiff.
LGBTQ plus folks are as deserving of becoming parents as anyone else on this planet.
Aetna is declining to comment. Right now, there are at least a handful of other cases against major insurers like Blue Cross Blue Shield and United. At the heart of every case, the claim that LGBTQ plus people are discriminated against on the basis of sexual orientation, with plaintiffs saying they're spending tens of thousands out of pocket for fertility treatments their insurers refuse to cover. According to court documents, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois says its policy is not discriminatory. We should note NBC News reached out to United and Blue Cross Blue Shield, but we haven't heard back yet. Only 13 states require insurers to cover treatments for same-sex couples who can't conceive on their own. But it's not that simple. Companies that have self-funded insurance policies where the employer pays employee claims don't have to follow state law, leaving many people confused about what coverage they're entitled to or not.
It is really uncomfortable sometimes to talk to your employer or your HR department about what benefits are offered, especially when those benefits have to do with wanting to start a family.
Tara Kolwicki, a labor and delivery nurse in Georgia, says she was denied coverage for fertility treatments when she decided to start a family in 2021.
I am a bit older, so it was going to be late in life pregnancies anyway. So to think that that was going to be pushed back even further definitely had me feeling that this might not happen for me.
She's now the mother to a 1-year-old and the lead plaintiff in a class action suit against her insurer.
As a nurse, I've always wanted to help other people. So I feel like other people in this situation may not have realized the options that they have or felt like they didn't have options.
None of these cases include protections for couples who would need a surrogate to undergo fertility treatment. Corey Briskin and Nicholas Majapinto are trying to change that. We introduced you to the couple at the forefront of a first-of-its-kind class action against New York City back in May. As of right now, they're still in the middle of this huge case against the city, which is now offering a $10,000 benefit for employees to put toward fertility treatments and surrogacy. The city is not commenting further. Some new hope for LGBTQ plus people trying to start or grow their families, while many cases hang in the balance. Maura Barrett, NBC News.
Coming up, end of an era's.
After the break, Taylor Swift's adventure of a lifetime coming to a spectacular close in Vancouver over the weekend. And yes, I went along for the ride. We'll take you there next. We are back with some financial headlines, starting with President-elect Trump's latest take on Fed Chair Jerome Powell's term.
CNBC's Bertha Coombs has that and some other money news. Bertha, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yes, Donald Trump says he will not try to replace Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, whose term runs through mid-2026. In an interview with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, Trump said that he has no plans to replace Powell, but if he told Powell to leave, Powell probably would. Trump appointed Powell a Republican as Fed chair back in 2018, but considered firing him soon after during a dispute over interest rates. Powell recently said no. to questions about whether he would leave his post early and doesn't believe that Trump can fire him. Apple is expected to release the latest iOS 18 software update early this week, which will include the first wave of Apple Intelligence AI features for the iPhone 15 and 16. Apple Intelligence makes it possible to use generative AI for things like editing text, proofreading, and summarizing, but Siri will also be able to forward questions and requests to ChatGPT without the need for a ChatGPT account. And Google recently unveiled GenCast, an AI-powered weather tool that's capable of generating high-resolution forecasts up to 2 weeks in advance. In testing, GenCast was more accurate on average than the world's current top forecast system in Europe. It also consistently outperformed in forecasting extreme weather such as heat waves, cold, and high wind speeds, and predicting the path of tropical storms. Google says GenCast's weather forecasts will soon be posted publicly on Google Earth to give access to outside scientists. That would be a really handy tool when you're planning travel, trying to figure out whether there might be storms and when to book.
No kidding. It would give Angie Lassman a personal break from me, asking her what she thinks when I'm planning something. Bertha Coombs, thank you very much.
History was made on ice over the weekend after Amber Glenn's victory in figure skating's Grand Prix final. Glenn, now the first American to win that competition in 14 years. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson has more on the Texas-born skater's big moment.
Hey there, it was a golden weekend for Team USA at the Grand Prix final, one of the major events in figure skating. Only the top 6 athletes in the world in each event are invited. Amber Glenn was the only American against 5 Japanese skaters, pulling off a historic victory for the 25-year-old that was about so much more than skating.
Amber Glenn's emotional win, an exclamation point on a breakthrough season as the figure skater clinched gold at the Grand Prix final in Grenoble, France.
I'm just happy my hard work is finally showing.
On Saturday, Glenn became the first American woman in 14 years to win at the sport's most exclusive competition. Her lyrical free skate dazzled the crowd, punctuated by her signature triple axel.
I'm exhausted. It has been a whirlwind of a season, and I kind of struggled with some imposter syndrome.
This new career high, a major comeback after injuries and health challenges kept Glenn from reaching her full potential. At 14, Glenn became the U.S. national junior champion, but a year later left the sport for mental health reasons. She came back and struggled. In 2022, a COVID diagnosis forced her to withdraw from nationals, but she jumped right back in the following year, becoming just the 6th American woman to land the triple axel in competition. At 25, winning gold and the admiration of her competitors.
They're doing her finish position.
It was a golden competition for the U.S. all around. American Ilya Malinin won the men's competition. The quad god defended his title in high-flying fashion, landing 6 of 7 quad jumps. Ice dancers Madison Chalk and Evan Bates retained their goal, winning by nearly 14 points. Performances driving dreams of skating in Italy at the 2026 Olympics.
But first, there are the Nationals and then the Worlds. The Nationals are in Wichita, Kansas. The Worlds in Boston. After that, Amber says she's going to take a break before prepping for the Olympic season. She was an alternate in 2022. Now she hopes to be on the ice representing the USA in 2026. Back to you.
Congrats to all, and thank you.
All right, Swifties. Grab your tissues, bring it in. After nearly 2 years of surprises, sparkles, and all the eras, Taylor Swift's record-breaking tour is officially over now. Well, I made it to one of the final shows in Vancouver. There I am on the left. There's a video I took. And here is the magic of this tour right in front of me. Swiftie dad with his daughter there for the first time. It was just a magical weekend. And it was a magical show, as every single one of these 149 shows have been. But don't Just take it from me, NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa. Obviously, she was there, too. There was no way either of us were missing this last weekend. She is still in Vancouver. She just joins us live, sadly, for the final time on the Eras beat, and I think it's after not too much sleep, because Emily was in there last night, which probably just ended a few hours ago. Emily, good morning.
Savannah, you know this feeling all too well. It's honestly remarkable I have any kind of voice this morning, because just a few hours ago I was inside this stadium, lucky enough to watch Taylor Swift take her final bow before a deafening applause. She thanked the more than 10 million fans who have attended the Eras Tour over the past 2 years, which, as the New York Times is reporting, has led to $2 billion in ticket sales.
Thank you. This tour has been the adventure of a lifetime.
Overnight, a final farewell to the transformative Eras Tour, wrapping up in Vancouver with magic, sparkle, and a whole lot of heart.
It has been the most exciting, powerful, most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Taylor Swift performing for nearly 3.5 hours in her closing concert, and we were inside the sold-out stadium, soaking up every enchanting era. The thrilling finale capping off the highest-grossing tour of all time, stretching 633 days and rocketing Swift from megastar to cultural phenomenon.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
The tour's final leg drawing an estimated average of 58,000 people per show, with each fan spending nearly $1,600 on tickets, travel, merch, food, and of course, outfits. Sparkly, bold, and clever. Okay, how about guilty as sin? The tradition of friendship bracelets inspired by a song lyric.
So make the friendship bracelets, take the...
Driving up bead sales at Michael's by 300% in host cities. Part of a concert culture among Swifties that celebrated togetherness. What is it like to have your siblings with you?
You make me cry. It's so special. It's awesome.
I think Taylor really just brings so many people together, so many families together.
Swift thanking them for all the magic they made.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank every single one of you for being a part of the most thrilling chapter of my entire life to date. My beloved Eras Tour.
As for what's next for Taylor Swift, the possibilities truly are endless. Some fans are speculating maybe we'll see another concert film or documentary, because we saw extra camera crews throughout the weekend inside the stadium. But look, I think one thing is for certain, and it's that this tour has left an indelible mark over the past, as my friendship bracelet here says, 149 shows. Savannah, do you have a favorite moment?
I was just going to say, look, I'm wearing one of mine that says 10-minute version, which, if you know what that means, you know what that means. Oh, gosh, a favorite moment. You know what? It was, obviously, Taylor and her performance is just incredible to see. I have certain favorite songs, certain things you're hoping for the secret songs. But one of the things that I loved was, even when I was in that audience, like, even at really crucial moments when you want to be paying attention to the concert, Swifties that were right behind us said to my friends and I who were there, let us take a video of you. You guys look so cute with your arms around each other like that. Like, it's just so sweet, and like just the atmosphere that has been created by fans, as Taylor noted so much. It just really is something. You and I, Emily, were talking throughout the weekend, and when you were gathering that sound, talking to fans out there, you said the same thing, like Swifties are just so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of what makes it such a special experience, is that people want to be there together, not just with their friends and families, but with people from all walks of life. And Taylor Swift even alluded to that. She said the fans, the traditions, the friendliness, that's what made this tour so special. And how cool that we got to witness it.
No, I know that we were there for the last week, and I love it so much. And actually, my favorite moment is the transition from Don't Blame Me to Look What You Made Me Do, since you asked, when she merges those two songs. Emily, thank you so much. Safe travels home. We'll see you back here. See you in a bit.
I just wish I had invested in beads now. My goodness, 300%.
Well, there's so many weird little things like that from the tour that just had such an impact.
Coming up, the nominees are...
After the break, which of your favorite flicks made the cut for Golden Globe's glory? The nominations were just revealed this morning. Who better to break them all down than friend of the show, pop culture whiz, Brian Balthazar. He's with us live up next. Hi, Brian. Stay with us. Welcome back. Every year since 1927, Time magazine carefully selects one person for the coveted title of Person of the Year. The annual issue features a group, idea, person, or object that influences the culture for better or for worse. This morning, we found out the 10 contenders on this year's shortlist. We're going to show you them here on your screen. They range from politicians like Vice President Kamala Harris to royalty like the Princess of Wales to tech CEO and Trump supporter Elon Musk. A few others on your screen: Mark Zuckerberg, Benjamin Netanyahu, Jerome Powell. So who will it be? We'll be sure to bring you more details on that final pick when we find out on Thursday. Always a talker. Last year, Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, so we'll see if they go more serious this year or what they choose to do. All right, let's get to some breaking news in the entertainment world. The nominees for the 82nd Annual Golden Globe Awards were just announced. Let's take a listen to some of the names.
The nominees for Best Performance by a Male Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy are Jesse Eisenberg, A Real Pain; Hugh Grant, Heretic; Gabrielle LaBelle, Saturday Night; Jesse Plemons, Kinds of Kindness; and Glenn Powell, Hitman.
As you're seeing there, the announcements were made by actors Morris Chestnut and also Mindy Kaling. Comedian Nikki Glaser will make Hollywood history as the first woman to solo host the event on January 5th. That is so cool. For more, let's bring in entertainment journalist and pop culture expert and our friend Brian Balthazar. Brian, good morning. Happy Golden Globes nominees announcement day. Let's get right to it. Who's going into the award shows with the most nominations?
The biggest nominee, and let me tell you what it looks like when you're doing this in the morning. You've got paper, you've got a computer in front of you, you've got a pad trying to frantically take a vote or take a count.
You have to do math.
Amelia Perez
yeah, exactly.
Is the story of a Mexican drug lord who undergoes gender-affirming surgery to become a woman. That is leading with 10 nominations. Of course, you heard from Wicked, obviously 4 nominations for them, including nominations for Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. And I know we like to talk about surprises and snubs, but I think what's worth noting here is that, in fact, director John Chu did not get nominated for direction of this film. But other nominees that are very getting a lot of nominations: Conclave, the papal story with Ray Fiennes; The Brutalist, which we also talked about, Amelia Perez. Brutalist is a post-war thriller story with Adrian Brody. A lot of popular dramas. Then some of the familiar faces like Hacks in television series with Hannah Einbender and Jean Smart, both receiving nominees. I'm kind of spouting all this because all the information is coming in. I should probably let you talk, but the short answer to your question is Amelia Perez received the most nominations with 10.
We should remind folks the Golden Globes is sort of like everything because in the movies they divvy it up between dramas and then the comedy musical, which is usually not a comedy or a musical, and then you also have the television categories, and those are divvied up into dramas and comedies.
Yeah, this is the one where you get to see everything. Yeah.
Everything is there, so that's why there's so much being thrown at Brian right now. We will ask about surprises and snubs, and we have to digest all of it. I was quickly trying to go through the list here. I don't know if it was a surprise, but Pamela Anderson is a Golden Globe nominee this year.
Yes, no, I mean, some people probably will consider it a surprise. This is for The Last Showgirl, but in fact, we've been seeing a lot of her lately, and we've been getting a lot of hype about this film, and this being Pamela Anderson's chance to really be her true, authentic self. We've seen her on red carpets doing that in the form of not wearing makeup on red carpets, but really, she's kind of been reborn as an actress as well, and this is going to be a breakout film. We're only beginning to hear the critical acclaim for her performance in this movie.
Brian, we mentioned the host, Nikki Glaser. Last year's host, it was Joe Coy. I hate talking about this. I just feel like it's so awkward when...
Joe's very nice. I like Joe, but Joe bombed last year. Joe bombed.
It was kind of panned after his jokes fell flat in the room. He said it's a pretty tough gig. What do we expect from this year's host, Nikki Glaser?
I expect Nikki Glaser to absolutely kill it. I think this has been a great year for Nikki already. You know, she killed it at the Tom Brady roast. She's been doing great roasts for a long time. She knows how to analyze an audience and what they want from her. She's an incredible comic, an incredible writer. She is going to be talked about. She's also nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Comedy Performance. Prepare yourself. Watch this space. Nikki Glaser is going to kill it and be even bigger after this.
So when it comes to the movies, often the Golden Globes can be a predictor of what we see with the Oscars. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the Hollywood foreign press goes on its own little tangent and doesn't really go the same path as everyone else. But do we have an idea right now when it comes to the top movies, what the Oscar frontrunners really are right now? What are the ones that could win the Globes and then could go on to get nominated and be the frontrunners for the Oscars?
I do think so. I think we'll probably see affirmation in the form of The Substance with Demi Moore, who, by the way, is also nominated for a Golden Globe. Conclave, absolutely Brutalist, and they're all going to be up there. These are incredible dramas. It remains to be seen whether The Last Showgirl will go up there, and Pamela Anderson will be among those. Most definitely, we're going to see Wicked, and I think we're going to see an explosion of the both arts and technical award nominations for that category and that film as well. I think this is a pretty good barometer, and I do think the Golden Globes nominations and the voters are a little bit more on warning now, since in previous years the Golden Globes have had their ups and downs. So I think they're a little bit more cognizant of that, but also they have a great selection of dramatic films to choose from too.
Brian, we've just got like 30 seconds, but we always got to know, any snubs that are super glaring?
I think the biggest one is John Chu, really. I think John Chu not getting nominated for director, and we're going to all read through all of these very quickly now, and you're going to see more of it, but that's the biggest surprise to me,
And it's going to be a star-studded event. You just look at some of the names we're already seeing. Nicole Kidman's nominated, Angelina Jolie's nominated. So it's going to be an A-list event, which certainly the producers of the show will be happy with. Brian, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.